Have you noticed something? Nothing is the same as it used to be. People go to less movies, spend more time at home, make less money than they used to, can afford to do less with that money, and watch a little more of something called YouTube. YouTube is a fascinating little piece of the entertainment puzzle. It fits in this space between short-form content like Instagram Reels and TikToks and traditional TV and films. It fills this gap in people's entertainment habits with videos of many lengths made directly by either a single person or a small team of collaborators. Then, by watching these videos, you are directly supporting these creators being able to pay their bills, which then means they can afford to make more content for you to enjoy. We all know the system. These small to huge creators make money off YouTube directly through AdSense, or take video sponsorships where a brand will give them an amount of money in exchange for an ad read, or the YouTuber will use their platform in order to sell their own product to the audience. It is fascinating. Although there are creators who have been making a living on the platform for well over a decade, it is still a relatively new medium. Considering painting has been around for centuries, even film is a new medium. And that is such a cool thing, to be at the very front edge of this entertainment sword. It's truly fascinating. Even more fascinating is that this new medium might save the slightly older medium of filmmaking. I may have clickbaited you by saying YouTube will save Hollywood. It won't. Hollywood as we know it is a dying branch, soon to be a widowmaker, falling at terminal velocity to crush a lot of people's dreams. But the art of creating moving images is far from dead, and so is the career of doing so for money. There are more opportunities now than ever for the little guy, and that is incredibly cool. And when I say Hollywood is dead, I do not mean feature films, and feature filmmaking is dead. Far from it. There will always be a place in people's homes and hearts for the movies. The movies will always be around, but the system that has forever made blockbusters, I think, is on its way out. But there are two examples I want to look at in this video that show people will always be making feature films as a format. Listers, a glimpse into extreme bird watching, and Iron Lung. These might be obvious examples to many, but I think they are both worth looking at in different ways, as they are both feature films with ties to YouTube. Listers is really interesting to me. Two brothers made this feature-length documentary about bird watching over the course of over a year. Since release, at the time of writing this video, it has accrued over 3.4 million views. It received offers from a handful of major streaming services, all of which were turned down. Rather, it was left up to watch for free on YouTube. The creators even left ads off for the quote-unquote video, which would have likely made them somewhere in the tens of thousands of dollars with that amount of views. But on the topic of ads, now is the perfect time to thank this video's sponsor, Audio. If you haven't heard of it, Audio is a one-stop shop for royalty-free music and sound effects at one of the best prices I've ever seen. Because beautiful images are just beautiful images without good sound and music. I don't remember who it was who said it, but sound is half the picture. And if you do anything related to video or film, you need a great source of good sound. There are thousands of tracks and really intuitive tools that make finding the perfect piece of music or sound effect for your project simple and effortless. For example, Hans AI. Now honestly, I'm pretty on the fence about a lot of AI tools, but this one is pretty cool. Rather than replacing the artists with AI, Audio has made it easier to find the perfect track using this new technology. You just describe what you want and it gives it to you. And that's what really sets Audio apart from the countless other music platforms, the curation. Audio partners with real talented artists and composers to provide you with a truly curated catalog of music for you to use. Many platforms claim to be curated, but Audio truly is. Just take a moment to browse their catalog, and it becomes so clear. What's more is you can get an entire year of Audio Pro for 70% off. That's just $59, just for being a viewer of this channel. If you want that price, all you have to do is use my link in the description below and enter code MaxwellB at checkout. Thanks again so much to Audio for sponsoring this video. Now back to how listers made their money. Rather than running YouTube ads or selling to a streamer, they left a Venmo link in a pinned comment so that anyone who enjoyed watching the film could donate an amount of money that they felt was appropriate. At one point I saw a figure that said they made over $70,000 in tips from this Venmo link. I haven't been able to find any updated numbers on this, as that was months ago now. So it's safe to assume they probably closed in on 100 grand, given it's accrued another 1 million views since the last time I checked on this. That is well over the average salary for someone in the United States, and over double any of the offers they received from these streamers. This is a brand new way to make money from a film. Would this method work on a narrative feature film? I don't think so, because narrative feature films take a lot more money to produce. But maybe there's something here. Maybe there's some way that someone could take this concept and apply it to a narrative feature, or a narrative featurette, or a narrative short. Because the shorter the runtime of a narrative project, the cheaper it is to produce. And the cheaper it is to produce, the less you have to bank on money on the tail end. So if you can make less money on the tail end from something that takes less time and less money to produce on the front end, maybe that becomes a more viable model. But you just simply can't make a feature film profitable if all you make is 70 grand on the back end. There's just no way. But there are many other ways to make money from a narrative feature, the main being the box office. Which brings me to Iron Lung, by popular YouTuber Markiplier. Markiplier is one of the OGs of YouTube. I remember watching him play games growing up.
Hello everybody, my name is Markiplier and welcome to Pawn Shop.
He feels like one of those creators who has just always been around. As I'm sure you know, he recently released a feature film called Iron Lung, based on a game of the same name that he did a Let's Play series on a few years ago. Iron Lung also managed to do very well at the box office, reaching over $50 million gross worldwide on a budget of just $3 million. That is an absurd return on investment. But you might say, well, it was only able to achieve such a huge return because Markiplier is such a huge name. He could only get that many people to see the movie because he has so many followers across all his platforms. And to that I say, no. Well, of course it helped a ton. There's no way you can achieve a $50 million box office run just from people on YouTube. If that were the case, you could make that kind of money repeatedly selling other, more easily sold, smaller products. But those subscribers did have a huge role to play, even if it wasn't all of them going to see the movie. Because it is a huge bet for theaters to play a movie of this size. It means that a theater cannot play a different movie on the screen at the same time. It means you have to play a huge budget studio film on less screens because you have reserved a screen or a handful of showtimes on a screen to this small movie with a relatively small name attached, being Markiplier. But Markiplier's audience sent mass emails and letters to chains of theaters and independent theaters saying they wanted to see the film at that theater. This strategy times thousands of people led to Iron Lung playing at over 3,000 theaters. Without being able to play at that number of screens, the film couldn't make that kind of money. On top of that, Markiplier was able to do this without a traditional distributor, doing it entirely independently. Hence me saying the Hollywood system is dying. If listers turn down offers from quote-unquote traditional Hollywood and traditional media and decided to maintain the rights to their film and made more money just asking for money from their audience, and Markiplier decides not to go with a traditional distributor and to self-distribute to all these theaters, they both make more money from both of these examples. And that's such a cool thing, because you're removing this disgusting, huge middleman from the equation. You're making the film you want to make without any influence from that middleman. And then you're self-distributing in a profitable way in both of these cases. And I think that's hugely inspiring for everyone. Even if you don't have the number of followers that Markiplier has, or if you cannot accrue 3.5 million views on your feature-length documentary about birdwatching. it's still really cool, because even if you can do either of these examples at a much smaller scale, you're doing really well. It's truly a win-win for everyone. Markiplier makes a ton of money from this movie. He's then able to distribute some of those funds to the people who helped him make the movie possible.
I took their salary that I paid them for the production days, and I said, like, I'm gonna apply that again as a bonus. And so just like whatever your salary was, it's now doubled.
And the audience gets to see a film that was made by a filmmaker, not by a studio, not by a board in a room who's deciding what a film should be based on data. The world gets a film that's made by a person and made how that person wants to make the film. And that's such a hugely powerful thing. And the theaters even win, because the theaters get a little diamond in the rough here and make a ton of money on a pretty sizable bet that they're making on playing this film. And when this pays off in this case, that means they're way more likely to do this again. And if it pays off then, they're gonna do it again. And then we start to see a resurgence in independent filmmaking by small directors from all over the world who are able to market their films via social media for free. And that results in incredible works of art being made and incredible films being made. And the more films are made around the world, the more people are employed by making films. And people like me get to live their dream of making films and not having to think about making money and think about having a day job instead of just working on movies and working on films because of something like Iron Lung happening. You know, it's this chain reaction that improves the lives of countless people down the line of this system. And God, is that a cool thing. But who loses? Who loses in something like this? Obviously, Hollywood executives sort of lose on something like this because they weren't in at the ground floor. They're sitting there wishing they would have taken a bet on something like this. And I'm sure because of Iron Lung, we see a weird series of films that are made quote unquote by YouTubers, when in reality they for sure aren't made by the YouTubers who are making them. They're for sure made by boards of executives in these huge studios, as we're living in a world where Warner Brothers is being bought potentially by Netflix. And that's going to result in some very strange things. But I think what matters is where our dollars go and what we choose to go see in the theaters, because that's like voting. It's like we're voting on what films we want to be made in the future, and we're voting on how those films get made and how those films get financed. And that's such a fascinating thing. And it's so cool that all of these things can exist right now when film as a medium is such a challenging career path to go down. But it's just so cool that these films can exist and these films can be profitable, and that the people who made them can be better off because they made them, instead of it becoming this like huge gamble to have made these films. That is so great. It's incredible. Because film is truly, in my opinion, the greatest form of storytelling and one of the highest forms of art, because it incorporates so many disciplines. It incorporates photography in the form of cinematography. It incorporates music in sound design and scoring of films. It incorporates fashion in the form of costuming. It incorporates interior design and just design as a whole in the form of production design. It incorporates graphic design in the credits and text design, and it employs so many people. And it's a trade at the same time. You know, hundreds of people work on films, even on a small scale, even $3 million films. That's still 4 weeks of work for hundreds of people. And it's fairly well paid work too. You know, you work on something like that for 4 to 6 weeks or however long it may be. And you know, as a tradesperson living in not a large town, like, you can pay your bills for freaking 4 to 6 months off of that. And then someone like me can afford, if I'm working as a second AC on that job, I might make 10 to 20 grand over the course of that job. 10 to 20 grand living in Minnesota, you know, I can technically pay my bills for 6 months off of that. And then that times however many people work on this film. Huge deal. This is a huge deal. And then if it's someone like Markiplier who makes it, and he takes that money and then distributes it to the whole crew and cast on the tail end, which is not expected ever. It's never expected of these types of things. But if that happens, and then you make not 10 to 20 grand, but you make 100 grand because you worked on this thing, and the 100 grand is like just a tiny piece of that pie. Wow. It affords you so much flexibility in your life, and then you can take incredible trips or whatever you might want to do with that money. Just insane. And then wherever this film gets made, let's say it's in some small town, if you're making a small movie in a small town, you know, that's gonna drive so much prosperity in that small town, because then the whole crew needs to get put up in hotels, and then the hotel owner does well. And the whole crew needs to get fed, and this small town local catering company gets a huge influx of business because of this. And film is so cool. It's such a financially fascinating thing. And if that's can all happen because of this platform that you're watching this video on right now, YouTube, like, it could all be saved, you know? And that's so interesting. Thanks again to this video sponsor, Audio. Check it out, link in description. 59 bucks, a whole year of incredible sound and music that you were hearing this whole video, and all in a huge chunk of my past videos as well. Go see an independent film in theaters. It supports a huge amount of people when you do that. And I will see you in the next one. Peace. Bye-bye.